What I would love to do is do a little bit of a rewind and talk about that college experience and being able to get into college because we're, again, obsessed with college pathways and how it affects your life for better, for worse, for great, for grand. And so you are from Pinehurst, North Carolina. You're an incredible athlete. You actually were on the team with a top, 30 draft prospect, Dylan Maples.
Mhm.
What was it like when you were getting recruited in high school and how you decided to go play baseball at the University of Richmond? For everyone out there listening, University of Richmond, Division One school, Atlantic 10, the Richmond Spiders, beautiful campus. And I actually went there only for one semester, and Joey and I were roommates. But how did you make that decision?
Yeah, so I would say I got a relatively late start on the recruiting process as well. I had a good friend who was committed to play at the Citadel, I think our sophomore or early junior year. The guy you mentioned, Dylan Maples, he was recruited by every school under the sun, a ton of college offers, a ton of attention at the MLB draft level. But my offers really didn't transpire until like late junior, senior year. I was very fortunate to have Richmond or to be on Richmond's radar as well as a couple other schools. I was really torn at the time between there and College of Charleston. Honestly, when besides having the recruiting coordinator that we were both very fond of to
Yeah.
get to Richmond,
Shout out Ryan Wheeler, wherever you
yeah,
are out there. Great guy.
a big factor was I wasn't sure I could get into Richmond just off my grades. So I did think to take advantage of an education that I probably wouldn't be able to get otherwise. It's a great school to
It's a
go
great
to.
school.
Top 20 business school, which I knew I wanted to pursue. And honestly, if you're good enough on the field, like the scouts are going to find you. So the
Yep.
deal breaker for me, or not, I guess the deal maker was going somewhere. If things fell through with baseball, I'd still have a great education to fall back on. And that's actually exactly what happened. Is I was hurt more often than not while I was at Richmond.
Yeah, no, and I love the Robin School of Business, and that's very similar for me. And we actually took a lot of classes together. We were in history of tobacco together. You
Yeah.
remember that? Ridiculous class, but I guess Richmond was a huge tobacco area long time ago, and so that was a class we took. I believe we were in microeconomics together as well.
We were.
You take those four first freshman classes, beautiful campus, walking around, and Joey makes such a great perspective, and especially for any fellow athlete out there, I'm sure you could be able to recognize the story. The coach influences your decision so much. We both were recruited by an incredible recruiter, and then a month before we get to campus, he up and leaves. And he has every right to do that though, because he's trying to make money for his family. Now that we're adults, we can better understand that he's trying to make money for his family, but the incentives aren't aligned. The coach incentive is not, hey, I want these kids to have the best life possible. It's they want to make as much money as possible for their family, understandably so. And so it puts the kids in a bad place. Now you can actually transfer freely if that were to happen because of the transfer portal. But back then there was no opportunity there. Did you know right away after he left that you were concerned, or were you more of the mindset of, hey, doesn't matter who the coach is, I'm here because I love the school and I'm going to have the best experience ever because coaches don't matter?
No, and that's a great question. I think my perspective, honestly, was I didn't know the alternatives that would be available, and maybe there really weren't any good ones. And I remember being with you when we got the news and kind of thinking, okay, this really shakes things up. But we were also so close to reporting to campus.
Yes.
I felt like it'd be premature to, start getting into what a pivot would look like. At that time, neither of us had even spent time in college, which is
You
exciting
couldn't
enough.
do anything at that time. Like
Yeah.
what could you have, in theory, you could have went to a junior college.
Exactly.
That's probably your only option. There's no very limited chance we could have pivoted at that time to another Division One school.
Absolutely. And I think to your question, though, and going back to the point of knowing Richmond was such a good school, I was like, I'm going to take my chances, still following through with that. And yes, if you're good enough, maybe you play at the next level. If not, you still get an amazing education. And, it was tough to have the foresight at that time, but I think the decisions at least went well. And I have no regrets as far as, the turns that were taken and what's panned out.
Yeah, no, I love your perspective, and I always say to people, and this really hit home for me. Was not able to play professional, and that was a dream of mine. I think we shared that dream, which really brought us together. But LeBron James, when we were in high school, I saw a clip of him saying, my coach, Coach Drew, who coached him in high school, use basketball as a tool to a better life. Beautiful saying. And so then I started trying to do that to myself and say, okay, use baseball or hockey for me as a tool to a better life. Now, for him, it's hundreds of millions of dollars. For me and for you, it sounds like it was to get into the best school possible. And so I want to actually talk about that at Pinehurst, what the culture was like, because that's something that I really struggled with in Cary. In Cary, the social culture was in Cary, Illinois, for those of you out here that don't know where it is, it's to go to Eastern Illinois or Northern Illinois on a baseball scholarship was cooler than going to Harvard, which it is what it is, and not everyone is huge education buffs out here. I run an education company, so I'm very passionate about it. But that I think was very negative for the high school psyche. Was saying, hey, going Division I at all costs is cooler than going to a great school, which I think is a terrible lesson out there for anybody out there. And Joey said it so beautifully, like, if you want to play professional, which we both wanted to, you will make it no matter what school you go to if you are good enough. It's truly, you're not going to be not seen if you're playing at the collegiate level. Can you talk about what it was like at Pinehurst, though, especially since you grew up with someone who, and did he end up getting any MLB games, Dylan?
Yeah, he spent some time with the Cubs in previous years, but yeah, he made it to the
So
top.
you grew up with someone who was like off the wall talented and really top prospects. So was there a lot of pressure in your community around athletics over academics, or how was that in Pinehurst, North Carolina, which is a beautiful area, amazing golf courses. Go check it out.
Site of the U.S. Open.
Yes, it was
Philadelphia
this year.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say it's a small town. So, of course, the larger the athletics and the extracurriculars tend to be magnified instead of, if you're living in LA, I don't know, I didn't grow up here. I don't know the high school as well, but there's so many other things to
Yep.
occupy you or distract you. So, yes, in Pinehurst, it's like either the football during that season or baseball or whatever the case may be is the focal. I would say, yeah, and as a young athlete and with any sort of aspiration of playing at the professional level, that supersedes education.
Yep.
Like, and I was thinking more along the lines of what teams are like top 25 college baseball teams.
Yep.
What's
Same thing.
competitive enough?
Yeah.
And I was putting education way in the backseat. Honestly, I applied to one school. I applied to NC State as a backup in case, like, I got a season-ending, career-ending injury and knew I wasn't going to be able to play. But otherwise, I was banking on a sports scholarship panning out. So I hope that kind of answers the question. But yeah, at the time, it was like baseball is more important than education. And honestly, even during my time at Richmond and Rollins, which are two stellar schools, my mind was still focused on what's next in the sporting world. I don't want to say I didn't make the most of it. Maybe I didn't, from an education standpoint. But it's crazy how late it takes to usually have that realization.
Oh, I completely agree. For me, it was all about baseball and hockey growing up. And then, at the end of my journey, I was lucky enough to play 1 year at Purdue in the Big Ten. And it wasn't until the middle of that year is when I gave up in my head and said, I got to get a real job. I still thought, hey, I'm going to play professional. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to get noticed. And this is my life. And you know what? I've always been able to make it work. And so it's going to work. Baseball's going to work. And you have to have that confidence and optimism in yourself if you do want to make it happen. But to your point, then you're not getting as many internships as you should get. You're not taking the most difficult classes. School is not the priority.